as I read more into this and I listen to the hearings a little bit, you find out some really interesting facts. Turns out that people have been having this sudden acceleration problem with Toyotas, not just recently, but since 2000. For the last 10 years, our government has gotten 2,600 complaints about the same thing. Got investigated in 2004, 2007. Now, the government basically didn't do a damn thing about it. But State Farm is getting ready to stop working with Toyota because they said, look, you're not taking this stuff seriously enough. Okay, in other words, we don't want to insure you because there's something wrong here, okay, and you're not really addressing it. Now, they tell us that they got electrical problems in some of their cars, but not in most of the Toyotas, and only in 09 and 2010. But it turns out 70% of the complaints in the Toyotas are not from the cars that have been recalled. They're from other Toyota cars. Same thing, sudden acceleration, and they can't stop it, okay? So I'm not buying that it's just the gas pedal. Before they tried the floor mat, and that was some weak sauce. And obviously, that's ridiculous that oh, no, the floor mat's getting bunched up under the gas pedal. And everybody would come in and go, no, that's crazy. I was in the accident. That didn't happen, right? And of course, the government, since they're in the pockets of any company that'll eventually hire them, they literally laughed and rolled their eyes and, oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, right, I bet your mat didn't get rolled up. Right. So, look, let's talk about that for a second, because that's a really important part. Why doesn't the government do anything about this if they've been getting complaints for the last 10 years? Part of it is the philosophy of big business always knows best. Representative Joe Barton, during the hearings, Republican, defending Toyota today, saying, hey, now, wait a minute now, let's be fair to Toyota, back off, they've been a good corporation for a long time. I saw another Republican on MSNBC earlier today saying Toyota has been a good corporate citizen. I mean, as long as you're a giant corporation, the Republicans will have your back, and the ideology in Washington is companies are always right, and their consumers are little bothers to be flicked away, unless there's some huge national media uproar over it, okay? But the second reason is more important, I think, and more nefarious. Some of the guys that worked in the government now work at Toyota, and it goes around and around, and it goes in that circle. And it's not just Toyota, it's all the car companies. The guys who are supposed to be regulating the car companies eventually get big payouts from the car companies. And that leads to that NBA analogy that I gave on MSNBC. Can you imagine if once NBA refs or NFL refs, any of those umpires in baseball, the minute they retired, they all went to work for Las Vegas casinos that lay down bets on their games? People will say, that's mental, that's crazy. There's no way you could do that, right? But we do all over our government, not just for cars, but for banks, for health insurance, for every single thing. If you work in the government and you're supposed to regulate that industry, the minute you retire, that industry hires you. That is an implicit bribe. You play ball and you will get paid. If you don't play ball and you try to actually regulate us, there's no payday for you. Why do we tolerate that? That's crazy. And that's what leads to this. That's what leads to people coming in and complaining and the regulators saying, get out of here, man. Yeah, right. And then those guys turn around and they literally got hired by Toyota. You understand how this works? It's crazy. And that's why the American people are tired of this stuff. Now look at the head of Toyota. He's the grandson of the original founder. He says, my name's on every car, so I care deeply. But look at this quote he gave during the hearings. While we investigated malfunctions in good faith, we focused too narrowly on technical issues without taking full account of how our customers use our vehicles. Do you understand what he's doing there? He's blaming the customers. Because they're going to go into litigation. They're being investigated now, finally, by the SEC and by the Southern District Office in New York. That's the District Attorney's Office. So they're saying, well, we designed a perfectly good car, but I guess we should have taken into account how the customers are going to use it all wrong. Oh, wow, they look like they're really on top of the problem. As I told you, 70% of the acceleration incidents happened in Toyotas that were not part of the recall in the 09 and 10 makes. 2,600 complaints over the last 10 years. There was an equipment recall of floor mats involving 55,000 Toyota Camrys and Lexus ES350s. and that happened in earlier in the decade. Okay, that happened in 2004, and afterwards, Toyota writes this internal memo, and this is interesting. They say, we have limited the recall and hence saved Toyota $100 million or more. And they call that, quote, wins for Toyota. This is what the slide is called. Wins for Toyota Safety Group. So it's not a win in terms of they really fixed it. It's a win because they limited the recall and saved $100 million or more. Now, were the floor mats the real problem in 2004? My guess is no. My guess is they had the same problem back then that they do today. It's just we never discovered it because all the complaints were dismissed by our own regulators. And now the people are dying left and right. You know, it's not an epidemic, but you saw the woman in the hearings today telling the story of how she couldn't stop it for 6 miles. She thought she was going to die. Then there was the cop's family in San Diego that died because they couldn't stop it. And now all of a sudden, oh yeah, it wasn't the floor mats. But hey, you know what? Toyota saved hundreds of millions of dollars all those years not fixing the problem. It's the money, Lebowski.